Hey there guys, Freddy here, welcome back to another Retro RPG. And normally I'd be saying, the end of another week, the end of another poll. But I didn't have a poll this week, because last week was a complete disaster. First off, I picked up a stomach bug, so I lost about half the week. Because my wife's still got a broken leg and I'm helping her, I took a bunch of medicine to stop me being stuck in my sickbed, but my stomach rebelled and did not like that at all. But I got through it. But just as I was recovering, one night, Thursday night, my son had an accident. He got a piece of glass speared entirely through his finger. And we didn't want to take it out and perhaps leave broken glass in his finger. So I took him at midnight to the local accident emergency department. And we sat there for about 4 hours before he got treated. We got back about 4:30 a.m. and I'm usually up at 7 a.m. so I didn't get much sleep that week. So I was good for nothing. So we didn't have a poll. So I just decided that this week, instead of going for a quick poll and throwing something together, I would just declare the second one from last week's poll to be the winner. And that was the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook, the first edition one. So we'll be going over to the desktop to cover that in a wee second. As usual, I'll be back at the end of the video to do some other poll-related stuff, because I've put up a new poll now, and some other channel-related stuff. But before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to talk about my patrons, who are wonderful, wonderful people who make all of this possible with their support. And that is very much appreciated. Now, if you'd like to join them, and I sure wish you would, and help support the channel, or you'd like to see these videos a week early, or you'd like to gain access to one of the other levels of patronage we've got, if you check it out in the description down below, it would be very much appreciated. But anyway, let's have a look at the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. So, this is the official Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. Now, this is the 1983 release from TSR, because this is the cover I remember. This is the first role-playing book that I ever opened and read through. So it's the one that I'm more familiar with. The original release in 1979 was this cover, which is called the Idol cover. But this is the blue and orange, because the spine of the book was a bright orange colour, so it stood out on your shelf. You could just see your AD&D core rulebooks standing out, highlighted by that. And it's a lovely cover. Jeff Easley, I believe, is the artist, and so nice looking. I also like the fact that it kind of sells the book, whereas the original is just compiled information for players and dungeon masters. This absolutely goes. This is the first of the series of the world-famous AD&D role-playing aids. It is the ideal vehicle of imagination for intermediate through advanced players ages 10 and up. And if we go to the back cover, it carries on. A wealth of information for the AD&D game player, in quotes. But who is it that said that? It's Gary Gygax, creator of the AD&D game phenomenon and author of this book. He's not afraid of selling it. This is it. It's the perfect player's game-playing aid and the best companion of the referee's Dungeon Master's Guide. As a player, this handbook will help you determine your character's abilities, such as strength, wisdom, and charisma. Character races, including elves, halflings, dwarves, gnomes, and others, are explained in detail to make the adventure fast, fun, and exciting. You'll learn the rules for progressing in character levels and most advantageous mapping and combat procedures. They're all in this easy-to-use book. Because that was the plan with this. While Dungeons & Dragons had expanded out through magazine articles and supplements and all that, this was the idea to put everything in one book, to compile it all and make it far easier to find. And lots of people think that this is the edition which does that job best, even above more modern ones. And I can certainly see that. While second edition's the version I played most, and for rules I like third edition best, this really leapt forward in the formatting of information, making the game easy to approach, even though it's got the big advanced on the cover. But I think that was part of the selling point. I certainly was far more interested. I didn't want to just play Dungeons & Dragons. I want to play Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. This was going to be the game that was going to show off how smart I was. So it's a great selling technique. Inside, it's basically identical to the first edition, except it tells us the cover's by Jeff Easley. There's a foreword talking us through what's been done by Mike Carr. We've got a lovely contents page with the appendices, tables and charts, and a preface by Gary Gygax talking it through. And we go through ordinary stuff. So an introduction, talking about the game, how to create a player character, the character attributes. So we've got ability adjustments, strength tables, ability scores, including the percentile strengths which are introduced. So you didn't just go up to 18 and then 19, you had 18, 01 to 50, 51 to 75, 76 to 90, 91 to 99, and 18, 100, maximum human strength. Intelligence table, wisdom, just showing all the different advantages. So adjustments for clerics, you've got your chance of spell failure, spell bonuses, how many extra spells you get for having a high wisdom. We've got dexterity. Dexterity adjustments for thieves to their picking pockets, opening locks, locating, removing traps, moving silently, and hiding in shadows skills. So the high dex really give them a bonus to their abilities. Constitution, including hit point adjustments, system shock survival, and resurrection survival. What else we got? The charisma table, character class limitations. Because, of course, the way that character classes were limited, by playing an elf or a gnome or a dwarf, you were getting advantages. You were getting infravision, dark vision. You were getting higher stats than humans. And to limit that, you are limited by your level. So a dwarven cleric can only go up as high as 8th level. An elf can only go up as high as 7. Because it's supposed to balance it out. Now, to me, that's balancing at the wrong end. You get your advantages, and only if you play for a while and get up to those high levels does it start to restrict you. And it's a massive restriction. Your character just stops. The humans carry on getting more and more powerful, but you stop. But, as I said, it's the wrong end. How many campaigns get through to really high levels? Very, very few. Most of us play a bunch of campaigns where we get to 5, 6, maybe get as high as 10, where these would start to kick in. I've just noticed half-orc there. I'd totally forgotten that half-orcs were standard in 1st edition, because they dropped out for 2nd edition. But, of course, the first NPC I ever made, because I dungeon mastered a whole 2-3 weeks after I first played AD&D. And my first NPC I made up was a half-orc. And my mother helpfully provided the name. My first NPC was called Puck. So we've got characters' races and the sort of minimum maximums. Carrying on through, explaining about dwarves, elves, gnomes, half-elves, halflings, half-orcs, racial references, and then we're on to the character classes. So we've got the cleric, and the experience levels required, what experience level you get to, what amount of hit points you get, what hit dice you've got, and the fact that it only goes up to level 11. So the character level of 7 that a elf cleric was limited to is only 4 behind the maximum available for the human version. Although we have spells available going all the way up to level 29. Because that's what I remember from 2nd edition, playing up to level 30, maxing out our characters. We've got the druid, fighters with all their abilities, some nice line art, or black and white art. We've got paladins, we've got rangers, the magic user, illusionists as a subclass of magic users, thief function table plus racial adjustments, the assassin as a subclass of thief, experience points and levels for them, the Grandmaster of Flowers for the monks, multi-class characters, alignment to talk through, character hit points, character languages, money, equipment, so you can equip your character out, all different weapons, including the damage versus opponent. Now, when I did a rules breakdown for AD&D 2nd edition, I put in it the damage was different for small, medium, and large monsters, depending on the weapon you were using. And some people commented that I was wrong, that it was the size of creature that was handling the weapon. Which kind of makes sense, you know, if a giant is holding a two-handed sword as a one-handed sword, he's going to do massive damage because he's much larger and he can get much more leverage on the weapon. But that's not how it works. First edition makes it clear that it's the damage versus opponent. It's not the size of the player. I suppose you could still misunderstand it, but I think it's pretty clear that it's the damage you're doing to the opponent. So if you're doing it to a small, medium character or a large monster. Lots more weapons. We've got hirelings and henchmen, one of the essential bits to the early parts of D&D, which I'm kind of sad got diluted and lost in later versions. It was so important to have all your followers and hirelings and henchmen, all those, as your party went out adventuring. It wasn't just 6 people against it. You had a big group and you were paying out to have all that extra support. Time, distance, character spells. And we've got all the different spell lists. So, first up, we've got cleric spells, and they are very familiar. We've got Bless here, Detect Evil, Detect Magic. We go through the cleric spells, right up to their maximum level, 7th. We've got druid spells, and it's a totally separate spell list that they use. Carrying on through the druid spells, got magic user spells, lots and lots of those. So many pages of magic user spells. 8th level, 9th level. And then we're on to illusionists, who get their own, again, separate list of spells. It's a bit faster, but then we're going on to an adventure section. So it's talking about making adventures. You know, we've got dungeon expeditions, outdoor exploration, town adventures, kind of teaching the games master and the players at this point what kind of adventures they're going to be having. We've got encumbrance, time and movement, distance factors, light, infravision, ultravision, silent movement, invisible movement, surprise, traps, tricks, and encounters. So talking what traps are, what tricks are, what encounters are. We've got initiative, we've got communication, negotiation, combat laid out. So you've got turning undead, spell combat, lots of different things within that. Different types of fighting apart from just hitting things. We've got combat procedures, so talking through saving throws and armor class. Morale, mapping out things, experience, poison, what makes a successful adventure. I actually have to pause on this picture. That picture looks so good to me. It seems almost realistic, whereas most of the others are almost cartoon comic level artwork, which is lovely. This really looks fantastic. For black and white art, that magic mouth up on the wall looks incredible to me. Continuing through, we've got appendices, so psionics, psionic abilities, all laid out in the core book, including different abilities, body control, shape alteration. We've got bard abilities laid out. We've got a wonderful character alignment graph showing that lawful good characters are considered saintly, chaotic good ones are beatific, chaotic evil are demoniacs, and lawful evil are diabolic. And I find it really weird that they're not just straight lines leading out. It leads to the extremes, lawful good, chaotic good, lawful evil, and chaotic evil being the most common, with the ones in between being squashed out, and neutral being a very tiny amount inside. Then we're on to the known planes of existence. And a wonderful, wonderful picture here showing the prime material plane, what it's surrounded by with the positive material, the negative material, the planes of earth, air, fire and water. And then they are within the astral plane, it shows, with the different things. So we've got the 7 heavens, the 9 hells, the abyss, Olympus, the happy hunting grounds, pandemonium, all these different other planes of existence, and showing that the abyss really has so many levels. While there are 9 levels to hell, the abyss has almost infinite. Suggested agreements for division of treasure, what to do with magical treasure. And then we've got some reference sheets as we get to the back, spell tables, and finally other titles from TSR. So some modules, the Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, etc. And they've even got an advert for Gamma World and the original Chainmail, along with Gen Con. So that is the original Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. Now, I will do a rules breakdown on this. It's not going to be much different from 2nd edition. 2nd edition was 1st edition tidied up a bit with a few fixes which had come out over the years of play. But I think it's worth having a look at the history of the game and seeing how this worked. A fabulous game, and looking through this has brought back so many memories. And so that was the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. And that brought back so many memories. Looking through that, so much stuff I'd forgotten. Even though I'm far more familiar with almost every other edition of Dungeons & Dragons, because I've only played a half dozen sessions of 1st edition, that just brought back memories of the first days of role-playing for me. Fantastic stuff, and a really, really good book. Anyway, that did not win a poll. That came second in the poll for reasons, as I said at the start of the video. Because of the calamity that was last week, I just declared the second place to be the winner for a second week. And we've started up a new poll. And it's a Retro Adventures poll. So the options are, first, Decision at Midnight, for the Star Trek role-playing game from Fazer, and that came out in 1986. The Fazer adventures are absolutely brilliant in this kind of slightly alternate history version of Star Trek, because they were written before The Next Generation had come out, before so many of the movies had come out, and they made up their own history for Star Trek, and it's great stuff, really well thought out, although radically different from what exists now. Second up, we've got Pirates of the Vistula for Twilight 2000 from Games Designers Workshop, and it came out in 1985. Lots of 80s representing going on here. And this is another Twilight 2000 adventure. We've gone through them in the past, and they tend to be open world stuff. Fantastic adventures. Be lovely to see what this one, set on a river, is going to be like. Whether it's a bit different, or whether it's very much the post-apocalyptic stuff that Twilight 2000 delivers so well. Third up, we've got Ice Demon for Dark Conspiracy. Now, I love Dark Conspiracy. Now, I've got great memories of this adventure. Dark Conspiracy, a Games Designers Workshop game again. This adventure came out in 1992. And it's where the world has had great rifts, where demonic forces and access to other dimensions are, including sort of fantasy ones, horror ones, etc. It's kind of like Rifts, but a bit more horror related. After that, we've got Atomic Age Cthulhu, which only came out in 2012 from Chaosium for Call of Cthulhu, funnily enough. Now, this looks really interesting, giving us yet another time period to set Cthulhu adventures in. The Atomic Age of the 1950s, maybe early 1960s. And it'd be fascinating to look through what they can do with this, because this was the age of horror movies. You know, the big monsters, the gigantic spiders, them with the giant ants. How you could take that kind of horror style and apply it to Cthulhu really makes me interested, and this is perhaps the book I want to look through most, because I'm not that familiar with it. But we shall see if it wins. And finally, we've got First Strike on Paradise for Star Race from Pacesetter Games in 1985. Now, Star Race was the first role-playing game I got. It's Star Wars with the serial numbers filed off. Plucky rebels from a fallen republic fighting against a galactic empire. And instead of having Wookiees, they've got bear men. And everything's labelled after playing cards. So the different suite of playing cards you are is your different role. And as you work your way up to ace, you get higher and higher ranked. Fascinating idea, and I've got fond memories of it, but I don't remember reading the adventures, so I would love to have a look through and see whether they're up to the premise of the game. So, it's in your hands, let's see what wins, although I can guess, because there's certain games which get more votes than others. What else have I been up to? Well, there's been some new releases on DrivethruRPG. If you click on the link down below and check them out. Some new classes, and mainly this week I've been bundling stuff up so people can get stuff cheaper if they want to buy everything of a certain thing. So I've finished off the comedic classes. Really oddities which just, while I was away on holiday, my mind was just being a bit silly, so I decided to write up, and I think there's some good humour in there. But we shall see if people agree with that. And over on RPG Gamer, well, we're getting right towards the end of the Knights of the Old Republic comic series. And things are really tying up. So it's really coming out quite strong. I've been surprised how good these comics are. Now, every day I do a review or I do stats from that day's review. After that, I'll be tying up the Vader comic series, because I think I've got 3 or 4 issues of that to do before it ends. The latest High Republic comic series, because I think I've only got 2 of those to do before it reaches its end. And I will see if I go on to finish off the Knights of the Republic era comics, because they had a 5-issue miniseries called War with the same characters, Zane Carrick, etc. in it. And it'll be interesting to see if I follow up with that, or whether we go on to the kids' cartoon, The New Jedi Adventures, or Young Jedi Adventures, sorry, which are a whole load of fun, but they are a bit childish. But anyway, as usual, I've been wittering on for way too long, so thank you very much for watching. But most of all, as always, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.